trains are cool. They're a cornerstone of any public transport network in any city in the UK. And while they might be nowhere near as easy to implement into a city landscape as your average bus route, and while local governments and councils might try to get alternatives such as metro systems like the London Tube or Glasgow subway, or tramways such as the Edinburgh trams or Sheffield Supertrams, you'd be hard pressed to find a city in the UK with more than 20,000 people that doesn't have any sort of rail link. However, there are two cities in the UK I can think of that have utterly awful rail networks, those being Leeds and Edinburgh. The difference between the two being that Edinburgh's public transport network as a whole is one of the best in Scotland and one of the best in the UK bar London, whereas Leeds' public transport network is UK renowned for being absolutely shit. However, Edinburgh used to have a thriving train network with trains to pretty much everywhere in the city. I mean, did you ever know that there was a train station in Niddrie?
What about Blackford?
Or Drylaw? Murrayfield? Hell, what if I told you that the Tesco Ox Gangs used to be a train station? Would you believe me? No. And rightfully so, it never was a station. But another massive Tesco in Edinburgh used to be a train station, and I will be visiting it in this series, along with dozens upon dozens of other stations. This is The Abandoned.
Today's journey will start at the current New Craiglockhart train station, although not abandoned. With trains pass through here either to Waverley or to Tweedbank via Gorbridge and Galashiels every 30 minutes Monday to Friday.
So I am currently situated at New Craiglockhart train station. To the south you've got trains to Galashiels, Tweedbank and Gorbridge. To the north, you've pretty much only got Bronstein and Edinburgh Waverley. Trains pass through here both ways every half hour, Monday through Saturday. However, that's not why I'm here. This show is entirely about abandoned train stations that haven't been in service for at least 3 decades. However, on this line, between this station here, New Craiglockhart, and the next station over, Bronstein, in between, there's a split onto a railway known as the Edinburgh Suburban Line, and on the southern branch heading northbound, splitting off of the main line onto the Edinburgh Suburban Line, is the site of an old train station which was originally closed in the 1960s. Let's talk about that. Behind me we have what could be classed as an extension to Fort Kinnaird Retail Park, which is on the other side of the A1 at the New Craiglockhart Junction. The site for the original train station for Niddrie is located behind these hotels and pubs and whatever it is. If you go around back of the Banatars Health Club, you will see that there is some railway tracks here. And this right here is the site of the original Niddrie train station, which had quite a troubled life. Opened in 1843, closed again in 1847, reopened in 1860 but closed 4 months later, reopened in 1864, and closed in 1969 to passengers, and then in 1950 to goods services. Hell of a lot of opening and closing the station, which I think quite an odd location for a station. I think nowadays you've just got New Craiglockhart Station, like 5-minute walk from here, so I wouldn't really see a return in this station anytime soon. Besides, it's a really busy freight corridor anyway, so.
Next up on our list of stations, we have Duncraig train station, located on Duddingston Road West, and is one of many stations to have closed in 1962.
Here we are at Duncraig Station. It is the station site is located underneath the railway bridge at Duddingston Road. You would have had 2 platforms either side. In fact, I can probably show you just down here. There's not really much you can access as a pedestrian, which is a bit unfortunate for me as I'm a pedestrian with unauthorized access, but yeah. The site for the actual platforms, you can't really see it now. So now all you get is mainly rail class 66 and 70s doing freight loads down here. So just tiny little nook other side of the bridge that is just got red gravel on the ground. This was meant to be accessed down to the platforms, albeit it'd be quite hard considering that there is literally no pavement. So I assume that there's probably there would have been some sort of pedestrian crossing here. You'd have had the traffic lights here, the crossing, or it could have even been a zebra crossing, or no, I'm not sure if that existed. Another thing to mention is that for the nook on the other side of the bridge, the pavement does end here, so I think it's extremely likely that this bit here would have had access down to the platform.
And next up, we have Newington Train Station, located on Craigmillar Park, and is quite interesting in comparison to the others.
I am currently at the former site of the Newington train station, and what's interesting about this one in comparison to the rest of the stations along the Edinburgh Suburban Line is that Newington Station here is the only station that's an island platform instead of the two separate platforms running parallel to the tracks. And there is a small staircase here I can show you, and that takes you down to the old platform side, however, under lock and key, so don't get in there.
Nowadays, to the surprise of no one, the station is really overgrown and is now sandwiched between the Edinburgh People's Theatre and a new development by Calla Homes.
Okay, so it's the next morning now, and I'm at the Blackford Hill train station, and by some miracle, the weather, despite being rotten yesterday, is actually really good today. So this is the site of the old Blackford Hill train station. It's an interesting enough station. There's not really much I can say about it. However, there is still a staircase down to the old westbound platform just behind me. If I turn my camera around, you can see there's a gate which has an under lock and key, which is a bit annoying, and if I were to go in, I'd have to pay hefty £1,000, so...
Aside from that small wooden staircase, there really isn't any sort of semblance of the old station site, 62 years on, as the site where the old station building was is now just extremely overgrown. And on the subject of the old station building...
Okay, so this is just a one-off event. This isn't going to be in every single episode of The Abandoned, but I have this cool little item of memorabilia, which is to do with Blackford Hill train station. For context, I have a bit of family that stay around Blackford, and one of my family members used to stay in Blackford, like my great aunt. However, she has since moved, and she, online, a few weeks ago, found a photo of the old Blackford Hill train station, dated from, I believe, 1960, maybe 1959. As you can see, you've got the tracks. This is taken from, I think, just east of Blackford Avenue, pointing towards the station, heading westbound. And here you can see the old station building. Barely the old
platform. It's
platforms.
such a lovely bit of architecture.
The reason I say barely is because, good God,
It
it's
does
overgrown.
quite upset me that it's no longer here and it's being destroyed.
Anyways, back to the show. Okay, so I'm now at our next station of the day, Morningside Road, which is pretty much the halfway mark of the railway. It's pretty much halfway between the New Craighall Rail Junction and the Gorgie Rail Junctions. This is one of few you can actually still see the old remnant. But yes, there's also a little staircase from Morningside Road onto the eastbound platform. And I assume to get between platforms, there is also this little pedestrianised bridge which goes between Balcarres Street and Stanwell Street. I would also like to state that this railway bridge is actually a really good place to go train spotting, as you can get all your class 66, 70s, and just other types of freight trains going in between. A couple times I've seen cross-country rail class 220s, and I think once a 221 too. So, yeah. If you're into train spotting, then I'd recommend this bridge. And on the subject of train spotting, okay, so I'm now at Craiglockhart Station, which is situated at the junction for Craiglockhart Terrace and Colinton Road. The bridge over the track is quite high up, is what I've noticed, and the track overall, to get down to the platform, there's an awful lot of stairs. However, can't go to the platform as trespassing. Don't have £1,000. From the station, trains go under Colinton Road and the Union Canal, and then there's a split in the railway where trains can either turn left and head towards Slateford train station, or continue straight on to our next station of the day, which I shall get to un momentito. So lastly, we have Gorgie East train station, which is located just off of Slateford Green, round the back of the Aldi car park in Gorgie Mills. Not all the trains that went down the Edinburgh Suburban Line will have served this station, because just up at Craiglockhart, there's a split for trains heading to Slateford Station. So only trains heading to Murrayfield or wherever would have stopped here, or to Waverley, for example. Now there's really not much to say about it. There's a fence with barbed wire at the top, which is interesting. There's a lot of overgrown plants around. There's also quite a lot of chopped logs from a tree, so I'm assuming they've probably done some work cutting down trees, probably to make it more accessible for trains coming through. You get your freight rail potentially crashing with the trees. That's probably not going to end well. Today's journey starts in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Good morning. I'm currently in Dalmahoy, Mains, near the site for the old Ravelrig Junction Halt railway station, or just Ravelrig Station. It's currently Sunday at like 11 a.m. and I've had to walk with a massive phone stand, a 2-litre bottle of water, and a lunch box for like half an hour to get here. So this station is odd, as it opened in 1884, closed in 1920, reopened one of the platforms for Dalmahoy Golf Course in 1927. That sort of got closed down in 1930, officially got shut down in 1949, and it's just, the tracks are still there. It's the only station where there are still trains passing through, but that's because all the other stations on the Balerno line, the tracks are being converted to walkway for the Water Leith. Whereas this was on the main line straight through to Waverley, so whether or not I can see the remnants, I don't know. It looks like the actual bridge over the tracks, it looks like getting up to there's private property, so for I think the people who owns it's sake, I'm going to stay down here next to the horses. Yeah, this is honestly really nice site for a station. Shame I can't see much more of it, just because I'm worried it might class as trespassing, even if it isn't. But yeah, honestly, this is a nice site for a station. Can't imagine it being very well used though, just because, well, it's basically in the middle of nowhere. The next town over is Dalmahoy, and that's like a mile or so away. And the next one after that's Balerno, so...
And next up on our list, an hour's walk away from Ravelrig, we have our next station, Balerno.
So that's 2 sites in a row I am unable to access due to it being private property. I mean, you can see the sign. But yes, at Balerno Village Toll, there's a small street called Station Road, which is mainly just a pavement. At the end of it is the old site for the Balerno Station. That's about as much as I can say without trespassing.
Next up on our list, we have Currie train station, which is located just off of the main street on Kirkgate.
At long last, a station I can access without having to worry about trespassing. So I am on the Kirkgate in Currie, on the bridge over the water of Leith, as you can see here. And if I look just behind me, there should be a bridge with a max vehicle height underneath of 13.6 meters. And that is the site of where I'm next going. If you enter the Currie Conservation Area at the end of the bridge on the southbound end, once you're coming down from Currie Main Street, you can either go left down this narrow path which leads onto the water of Leith Walkway, or you could go up this set of steps, which are extremely steep, which will take you up to the bridge, which is now a cycle path, which was the original site for the Currie train station. I've got a nice bench, I can sit down. But yeah, this is a site I've actually known about for about 3 or 4 years, and I've always really wanted to come and visit, have a look, and I've just never done it. And this show is actually a perfect excuse to do so. But yeah, honestly, you can't really see any of the remnants of the station now, but it's still pretty cool regardless. I will say that this hasn't been my nicest experience of the station site, though, as there's been a lot of, shall we say, horse excrement on the path. Yeah.
Next up on the list, we have Juniper Green Station, which sticks out from the rest quite a bit more, considering the fact that the pathway gets wider at the old station site.
I'm gonna be honest, out of all of the projects I've done this year that involve me going out a lot, this episode is probably one of my favorites, if you can ignore the tag. But hello. This is nice because I don't normally go on nice nature walks like this, but due to the way the Balerno Railway was laid out, it's right along the water of Leith in the middle of what is essentially a nature reserve, so making the most of it.
And next up on the list, we have Colinton Station, which is most famous nowadays for the Colinton Tunnel murals, which are absolutely awesome. I always recommend this site to tourists. You don't even need to like art to know that it's awesome.
Yeah, there's no point hiding it. This tunnel is amazing. If I'm being honest, if there's anywhere in Edinburgh that I recommend to tourists that they'd probably overlook otherwise, it's Glenlockhart Hill, Blackford Hill, and here, because, quite frankly, this is stunning. And it's always really interesting to me seeing how far this has come. Like, it took 2 years to get this entire mural done, and honestly, I'm impressed it didn't take longer just with how hard it must have been to get it all done. Truly is stunning. You kind of have to come see it for yourself to believe it's just sheer magnitude of how amazing it is.
It doesn't take a genius to work out why I dialed down the 30s filter on this section. To be fair, I think I've grown it up in a very artistic family, so I am a bit biased towards murals and stuff, but, like, come on, you can't not like this.
And last but not least, we have Abbeyhill Station, which is located in Kings now. Honestly, no one ever talks about Hales or Easter Hales, and they always talk about Wester Hales. I'm not even sure Hales and Easter Hales exist. But yes, this is one of the stations where you can really just have no ability to tell where the platforms are. The grid reference on OpenStreetView has it in a completely different location to where the Wikipedia article has a photo of it, and I can't find either.
Today's journey will start on the outskirts of Leith and relatively near Newhill.
Good morning. I am currently on the Hawthorne Vale path in Leith, at the site for Newhaven train station, which closed in 1962, despite not being connected with the Edinburgh Suburban Line. I guess it was just coincidence. This station is located just east of the bridge for Craiglockhart Road. There isn't a platform on the other side, so I'd assume in how narrow this is. This was probably single track running. Honestly, this is like any other generic train station on a cycleway in North Edinburgh. It's essentially just a walkway next to a road with a small cycling platform surrounded by trees. But yes, now I've got to do a 20-minute walk back so I can get to Bonnington, which is our next station of the day. And would you believe it, it's another generic cycle path. Except this one's under a dark, dingy bridge that's leaking. So this is Bonnington Station. It is one of the latest stations to close. I say latest despite the fact that it didn't close until 1968, which is still over 55 years ago. But compared to a lot of the other stations, which closed anywhere between 1945 and 1965, this one lasted quite a while. I thought that Princess Street Station would be the latest to close, but I guess not.
Yeah, when I was filming this is all I could hear. It got quite tedious quite quickly.
So the platforms, alike at Newhaven, are still very much visible. However, the main points to get to them, the staircases onto Newhaven Road, still remain and still seem to be pretty well used. As the time I've been here, about 4 or 5 people have come down both of the staircases,
So yeah, you can definitely more clearly see the eastbound platform than the westbound platform, because the westbound one's been built up on quite a bit, but you can still see both quite clearly. Additionally, both staircases remain open. Well, sometimes. The southern staircase, the past few times I've been past, has been closed. However, there looks to have been a potential third staircase next to the southbound bus stop on Newhaven Road, which is interesting.
It is Saturday afternoon, and I am starting off at one of the oldest stations to close on this list, Junction Road, also known as Junction Bridge. Opened in 1869 and closed earlier than our previous 2 stations in 1947. So yeah, this station, like a lot of others, closed between 1917 and 1919 because World War I. This station is located on the banks of a very polluted looking water of Leith. Doesn't normally look like this at Dean Village, as far as I can remember.
This station was part of the Caledonian Railway, and the next station over is the terminus at Leith Citadel. Oddly, it was dual-track running, however there was only room for 1 platform due to space constraints, which I find odd, but oh well. A short 5-minute walk up North Junction Street to North Leith Crossroads takes us to our next station of the day, North Leith, also known as Leith North, also known as Leith. It's complicated.
So the next station of the day is Leith North, also known as North Leith, also known as Leith, because this station got its name changed thrice. Honestly, there wasn't much about it, aside from the fact they changed names thrice, but there's a cool anchor statue in its place now.
Leith North opened in 1879 as Leith Station before becoming North Leith Station in 1903, then Leith North in 1952, then closing in 1962. Next up on our list of stations, we have Leith Citadel, which is located on Commercial Street, roughly halfway between Leith North and South Leith.
For those of you who don't know what a citadel is,
A citadel is the most fortified area of a town or city. It may be a castle, fortress, or fortified centre. The term is a diminutive of city, meaning little city, because it is a smaller part of the city of which it is the defensive core.
So that's what a citadel is, and I'm assuming this part of Leith was probably the most fortified bit of Leith. But yes, that's what the station's named after. This is the building here. It's now a youth centre where youths do youth activities. And trains passed this station starting from 1846 until 1947 when it was closed for passengers. Originally it was North Leith until 1952 when it became Leith Citadel, and then closed in 1968, making it another of one of the most recently closed stations on the list. It's 5 p.m. on a Saturday mid-August. Why does it feel like 3 p.m. on an October Wednesday? But yeah, so I'm currently at the site of the old South Leith train station, which took the crossroads for Tower Street and Constitution Street. Opened in 1832 as Leith Station, and then closed, and then reopened in 1859 as South Leith, since that's roughly the same time as when North Leith Station opened as Leith. And then in 1903, South Leith Station closed for good. At the moment, it's just a building site.
And now, at long last, we have probably the most interesting station of the series, Leith Central, which if I really wanted, I could probably do an entire video on. This 4-platform station took up an entire town block with Leith Walk to the west, Easter Road to the east, and Duke Street to the north. Opened in 1903 before closing in 1952 and becoming a DMU shed, which then ended up closing in 1972. In fact, when the station was still around, there was a bar called the Central Bar, which actually still exists to this day, and you can still go to it and get a pint.
As for the remains of the station site itself nowadays, it's kind of been split into two separate things altogether. The first half being a soft play. The thing I always forget to mention about this soft play is that in 2018 I was on its YouTube channel.
My name is Morty, I am 8 years old and I like anything buses.
It's worth noting that this soft play, Wonderworld Edinburgh, originally used to be Leith Waterworld, which was a massive indoor swimming centre, which I think a lot of people can recall many great memories from. Shame I was too young to go there ever.
The other part of the building is now a Tesco. I cannot put into words how much I despise this establishment.
And now, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum for being interesting, we have Leith Walk Station, which I'm surprised I was able to get a segment that's longer than like 20 seconds on this station.
So next, not the last, but getting there, station on my list is Leith Walk, which is, go figure. Beside the old station you can't really get to, but the actual bridge over is just by the Shrub Hill bus stops, specifically the one heading northbound towards the Walk. Overall, you really can't see much of the station. It's not really too interesting anyway, so if you want an interesting station on Leith Walk, go up to Leith Central. So this is our last stop of the day, Powderhall, which you can't really get any great views of because it's essentially just a wasteland of gravel and stuff. I decided that the best place to get a good shot without having to be disturbed by people is in a little row of trees in Red Bays Park, which is right next to the station site. There's not much to see. Not much I can commentate on either. It's a shame I didn't finish with Leith Central, isn't it? So this station was only open for a measly 22 years. It opened in 1895 and then closed in 1917. As far as I'm aware, tracks are still here, but as far as I'm aware, no trains come down here except for probably like 1 or 2 freight trains a day at most.
Today's episode starts at, I kid you not, the wrong location. I have no idea how this happened.
Hey, what's going on guys? Me and Mortimer here, and I've barely just recovered from being quite unwell, having very sore throat, blocked nose, etc. Basically all the flu symptoms but dialed up a notch. That is why this video's come out a week late, apologies for that. But yeah, I've already made quite a big mistake trying to find today's station. It's meant to be Port Edgar, however I made a wrong turn. I was supposed to go down, I think, Burgess Road. It's currently Society Road that I'm on. I'm literally, if I was to literally just cut through this woodland here, which I don't want to do because it looks like there's a ton of nettles, it'd probably take me about 2 minutes to get there. Unfortunately, that's trespass and I can't do that, and to get to Port Edgar, it's apparently a half-hour walk from my exact location. So I settled here with Key the 4th, Queensway Crossing, etc. Might not get the good thumbnail shot that I wanted, but I honestly can't be arsed to do much walking today. So yeah, I think out of all the stations I've reviewed in this series thus far, I think Port Edgar was opened for the shortest amount of time. Opened in September of 1878 and then closed in March of 1890. So I think 11.5 years is our record to beat station-wise. This was the end of the line, and it was located right at the port, at Port Edgar, so I assume it was probably used quite a lot for freight, and also people commuting. But otherwise, I can't imagine it being too busy. I think people would have probably just got on the train at South Queensferry, which is the next station of the day, so let's do that, because quite frankly, I'm fed up already. I've gone up one of the small side paths, and you can barely just see the port there. That's where the old station was. And despite that, despite me being down there, it would have taken me half an hour to walk all the way up there, and then come all the way back down. Jesus Christ. Alright, so next up we have South Queensferry Station, which opened in 1868, was resited in 1878, presumably to coincide with the opening of Port Edgar Station, and then closed in 1890. However, that wasn't its only run as a train station that exists. Yeah, so in 1919, South Queensferry Station reopened as South Queensferry Halt, and then it lasted 10 years and then closed in December of 1929. Can't say I'm surprised. The station site is located at the back of the Scotmid car park in Queensferry, just a bit down the small path. Following said path would take us to another station on my list, Kirkliston. However, that's a station for another episode in about 2 months. Right, so next up, we finally finished the stations in North Queensferry. Now, we moved on to the Barnton line. Start off at Barnton Station. The site of the station is literally located inside someone's house, so it's standing in the middle of the junction where there's a lot of traffic, and it's not nice. So this is so far the only station of the video that's existed in my grandmother's lifetime. It opened in 1894 as Cranbourne Brig, renamed to Barnton in 1903, and then closed in 1951. That's like a good 20 years after South Queensferry, 22 years. Otherwise, there really isn't anything to say about it, and I'm quite hungry, so I'm going to try and see if, with the 82 pence I have in my purse, I can see if I can get myself lunch in Scotland. Alright, so the next station of the day is Davidson's Mains, which was originally called Barnton Gate when it opened. So yeah, like Barnton, Davidson's Mains station opened in 1894 as Barnton Gate, was renamed to Davidson's Mains in 1903, and then closed in 1951. Nowadays, the site is a cycle path that has a cool monument by the Royal Bank of Scotland, but that's about all I have to say. I'm also quite tired, so I think next station will be the last one of the day, and then I'll just do Turnhouse at home, because quite frankly, I'm still not feeling great after being unwell for 2 weeks, So lastly, we have Houseau Hill Halt, which is located at the end of Houseau Hill Avenue on the footpath over the bridge. This station is the newest to open, opening in 1937. However, like all the other stations on the Barnton line, it ended up closing 14 years later in 1951. Can't say I'm surprised. Yeah, this station, there's really not anything to talk about except for the fact that there's just an absolute maze of pathways at the bottom of this pathway, which makes it a bit confusing to find the actual site for the station, but otherwise that's about it. Kind of happy about that because I'm still feeling quite rubbish now, and I've got about 4 minutes until my 29th, so I'm gonna get heading. So yeah, next station of the day is Turnhouse. I intended originally to walk up to the station site and actually do this in person. However, I started feeling quite faint after I did Houseau Hill, so I just walked through to Drylaw Shopping Centre, took 37 into town, and then went home from there. I mean, quite frankly, I was feeling quite faint. I wasn't willing to walk for 45 minutes total, just to get to the Turnhouse Station. Because it was a Sunday, so the 68 wouldn't have been running, so I couldn't just walk one way and film there and then take it back. However, I have still at least visited the station site, as I tried to film this on Saturday the 20th of September. However, I couldn't even get past Houseau Hill Halt before I got really unwell again. So I managed to do 2 stations then. And then I was going to keep that footage and then come back to this when I felt better. However, me being the idiot I am, I ended up deleting that footage. So I wasn't able to do that. So hence why I'm filming from the comfort of my house. Turnhouse Station opened in 1897 and lasted 33 years before closing in 1930, and it is located on the section of track which still exists to this day and is the main train corridor between Edinburgh and Fife, which lays between Dalmeny and Edinburgh Gateway Station. The station was located just south of Turnhouse Road, and I have thought quite a few times about the potential of Turnhouse Station potentially reopening. However, every time I think about that, I think about how far Turnhouse Station actually is from the new developments, which kind of makes me question if that will happen. And I don't really think it's going to be like Blackridge Station, because whilst that's quite far away, Blackridge is tiny. Not many people are going to want to take the train from Blackridge. Or at least I thought. The other day I was looking at the passenger numbers at Blackridge Station, and good God is it well used. So yeah, Turnhouse Station was actually by far the quietest station I visited so far, as all I could hear was the wind blowing and the leaves. For the most part. It's next to the airport, so there was a lot of planes flying overhead, so... But anyways, that's all the stations for today. I'm sorry, this episode hasn't gone great, I will admit. What with me not actually going to Port Edgar Station and me having to record Turnhouse Station segment from my house. So, bit inconvenient, but oh well.
First off, would you believe it? Something's gone wrong in the middle of filming this yet again.
The tidings from my train. I know that you were probably expecting me to be talking about trains outside of a train, but no, I'm talking about a train in a train. So essentially, the story is, the reason I'm having to do this here is because when I was filming Abbeyhill, I was in a rush for a 19, so I rushed through the clip. What I didn't realise was that 3 seconds into the clip, I got a phone call, which ended up pausing and deleting the recording I had done. And I just did not notice until just the other day. In fact, it was the morning before I filmed the final station of the day, which is Scotland Street, so this isn't the most fortunate series, is it? I always end up doing something wrong, or something just happens out of my control, doesn't it? So yeah, Abbeyhill train station opened in 1869, and then ended up closing in 1964, so it made it a good near 100 years in service before its closure, so it's pretty good. It's not the longest that a station's been open on this list, at least as far as I'm aware, but still, good long while in service. The station itself was located not too far out from Waverley. It's just about like half a mile east of it, I believe. And from Abbeyhill, trains would split off to Easter Road Park, Leith Central, and various other stations. You might be wondering why I didn't just go to Abbeyhill after I filmed Scotland Street, since I knew that I had gone to Abbeyhill before I did Scotland Street. The reason is, quite frankly, I can't be arsed to wait 20 minutes just for there not to be any people around for me to film, because I ended up waiting 20 minutes there. And then I sat and filmed for 3 minutes. And also I had the entire carriage on this train to myself, so I'm enjoying that. Alright, so next up, we have Meadowbank Stadium Station, which, according to my research, is by quite a good chunk of time, the most recent station out of all the ones in Edinburgh to close, as it opened in 1986 and it closed in 1998. Granted, it was only open occasionally for events at Meadowbank Stadium. I mean, go figure, the name's literally Meadowbank Stadium. But originally opened for the 1986 Commonwealth Games, which took place at Meadowbank Stadium. I don't really have time to explain this, but I just have. So, opened for the Olympics. Station remained for a good 12 years afterwards. For occasional use if events were happening at the stadium. And then in 1998 it finally shut down. And believe me, when I did read that it was for the Olympics at first, So when I saw that it was open from 1986 to 1998, I was convinced it was a typo, because that feels really recent. Especially considering that if you look at the tracks now, it's extremely overgrown with ivy. But then again, plants can seem to do their thing quite quickly, and 1998 was 26 years ago, so, I mean, you know.
5-minute bus ride down the road takes us to our next station of the day, Jock's Lodge.
Alright, so next we have Jock's Lodge Station, which isn't exactly here. However, the only other way to actually get a good shot of it is to go into someone's private property, so yeah, this is gonna have to do. And I'm gonna be honest, guys, I don't think we're getting a train station that was open for a shorter amount of time than Jock's Lodge, as it opened sometime in September of 1847, and then it ended up closing in July of 1848, so it barely even made 10 months. So yeah, there are actually still tracks right up here. As you can see, this bridge behind me, still get very frequent trains between East Lothian and Mid Lothian to Waverley, crossing over this bridge. A bit bummed out though, as I just missed a shot of the Lumo train because my phone was on the verge of dying, and I got a clip in it and gave me the 10% battery warning. But I'll hope another train will pass soon. So next up we have Easter Road Park Station, which is honestly far from the greatest useful-wise, as it was only open at very specific times over the span of 17 years and literally just had one platform. And it was arrivals only. The station was opened in 1950 and then closed in 1967, and the only reason it existed was for every Charlie Gunn's worst nightmare, i.e. For arrivals at Hibernian FC Football Club. So yeah, this station is basically the same as Meadowbank, however it's worse in basically every mannerism. You might have also noticed that in between filming I've now got a haircut. That's because my phone died when I was filming the last station, which, if I'm not mistaken, was Jock's Lodge. So now I am back on the Friday afterwards, and I had a haircut on the Tuesday because I had the day off. Okay, so I'm now at the site for Easter Road Station. It has taken me about 10 minutes of just waiting here for there to finally not be people around so I can finally film. So yeah, I've been waiting here for so long to finally have a quiet point at which I can start filming that my one that I intended to take is literally just past me now. That's what that sound is. God damn. So yeah, this station opened in 1891 and then closed in 1947. However, it was closed for 2 years in between 1917 and 1919 due to, you might not know this, but I think there was some sort of event happening around the world back then. So this station's on the Leith and Bonnington line, which is also along Abbeyhill, but the other stations on this line are Leith Walk and Bonnington, which if you would like to see more about that, please see episode 3 of this series. Otherwise, that's basically all there is to say. I'm honestly fed up of standing in the exact same 1 square meter that I have been for the past 20 minutes because I'm a coward who doesn't feel comfortable filming around strangers, so I'm gonna get heading to the next station. Alright, so next up we have St. Leonards Station, which was, for lack of a better term, an absolute pain in the ass to find, but after doing quite a lot of research I found it, and like all the other stations I'm reviewing in the series, I'll just have the link to the coordinates in the description, because quite frankly, I spent a good, half hour trying to find this place. So the station itself opened in 1832 for 14 years, before then closing again in 1846. However, it then reopened on the 1st of July 1860, and then it closed to passengers on the 30th of September 1860, but remained open for goods services and freight and whatnot for another 108 years until closing in 1968. Honestly, if it had just closed down and not been used as a goods shed or whatever for another 108 years, would technically mean that it was open for the briefest period of time, I think in the entire series, if you ignore the 14 years beforehand. Otherwise, the station site itself isn't too interesting. However, it is next to Arthur Seat, so you can get some very good views, even just like a 20-yard walk from the actual site itself. So, pleasant.
Next up, we have a station I can't access. God damn it.
Sun always has to go wrong in these episodes, doesn't it? Episode 1, I had to take the night off due to torrential rain. Episode 2, I couldn't enter two of the stations due to them being private property. Episode 3, I had to go back home twice because I left vital parts of my tripod at home. Episode 4, I ended up going to the wrong location altogether at one point, and I had to film Turnhouse at my house. In this episode, not only has my phone died mid-recording at one point, but now I'm not even able to access one of the stations. This show is an absolute disgrace, I swear to God. So as you've probably worked out, I've got quite a broad definition of what I'd class as Central Edinburgh. Not least for the fact that I don't want the last episode of this show to be excruciatingly long. But yes, this station opened in 1900, closed to passengers in 1962, and then closed altogether to freight and whatever in 1964. It's located in between the city centre and Murrayfield Station, which is another one of these stations I am going to be visiting in the near future, but till then, I'm just bored out of my mind, because you guys know my relationship with staircases, don't you? So yeah, even then it'd be awkward, because I'd have to literally go over to a play part and film in the middle of a play part. And I'm a grown 14-year-old boy who looks like a grown man, so I don't feel comfortable doing that. Alright, so next up we have one of two of the major stations on this list, the other one being Leith Central, which I covered in episode 3. Yet again, you should go watch that. So this station opened in 1870 and closed in 1965, technically. It was only a temporary station when it was built in 1870, and then it got burnt down in 1890, and then they started construction on the actual station, which opened in 1893, and then had a completely new hotel built in the station in 1903, which was in Caledonia, and then it closed in 1965. The actual station itself got demolished in 1969, but the site of the hotel is still very much intact, as it is still used as a hotel, albeit an extremely posh and expensive one. There were an awful lot of trains at this station too, as it was one of Edinburgh's biggest. You had trains to Carlisle, Glasgow, Stranraer, Oban, Manchester, lots of other locations. However, after nationalisation of railways in, I think, 1948, if I'm not mistaken, they then decided to just move all of the trains into one big station, which I think is a fair move. That big station now being Waverley Station, which I've been in many a time, and only about a tenth of the times I've been in there, I've actually been getting a train, so, you know. Alright, so for the last station today, we have Scotland Street, which is about 100 yards behind me, but I don't want to actually film in it because it's the site of a children's play park, and one that, at the moment, and in recent memory, has always been pretty busy. And I think, even though I am still technically a child, I am 14, I'm 6 foot tall, so I do look like a grown adult, and I think filming in a play park when you look like a grown adult is maybe not the safest idea if there are a lot of kids around. So yeah, Scotland Street Station opened in 1842 and closed in 1868, and is located between the Trinity Station and Canal Street stations. Trinity Station will be the first station of next episode, and Canal Street is now on the site of the modern day Waverley Station, and also all like North Bridge, Canal Street stations, whatever, I'm not going to be covering because they are literally just Waverley Station, so I'm not going to be covering them in this series. And the actual station site itself has been awarded a red plaque from the National Transport Trust, which is cool. I'm probably going to be able to go in, get a photo of that, and then bail. Boom, red circle. I don't want to actually be doing this sort of stuff where I'm talking to the camera in the play park. Just because, you know, that'd be weird. Today's journey starts technically not in Granton, but it's close enough and I can't be bothered to include it anywhere else. Alright, good day folks. I am currently in Trinity. I basically have no reason to go to Trinity ever unless I'm doing the entire journey on the 23. Or, in the case of today, visiting Trinity train station, or at least where it used to be until it closed 100 years ago next year. This station was opened in 1842 by the North British Railway as part of the Edinburgh, Newhaven and Leith Railway. However, in 1846, it was relocated to, I believe, to where I'm standing currently, as they were now opening the new Edinburgh, Leith and Granton Railway. So the next station from here was Granton Station, which, unlike Trinity Station, was closed in 1925. So the station then remained open until 1925, when it got shut down. And as for the remnants of the station today, you can still very clearly see both platforms, albeit they're quite overgrown. But the building behind me is actually the old station house, which is interesting. So the next station along this line is Granton Station. However, I'm not going to be doing that one next, as I am a closer walk to another station on this line, and especially one that's in a more accessible location and more convenient location, just in the grand scheme of this entire series. So I'm gonna walk up there now. So yeah, see you at Granton Road. There we go, slick transition. Okay, so I'm now at Granton Road Station, which opened in 1879 and then closed in 1862, and is located between East Pilton train station, which is a bit up that way, and Leith North Station back that way, which, if you want to see more about that, I would highly advise checking out episode 3 of this series. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Granton Road Station. It's honestly not the most interesting station. The path does sort of go at a weird angle though, however that's only because it goes up onto the actual platforms themselves. And there's railing on the side of the walkway, which I assume is meant to be where the tracks were located. Next up, I'm going to get to enjoy a bit of the coast with Granton Station. Well, I say enjoy, but it's very windy, I don't like it. Alright, so I'm currently at Granton Railway Station. As you can see, it is located right next to Granton Harbour, on Firth of Forth. And of course, because I'm on the coast, it means that it's very windy. And also, there may or may not be a storm tomorrow, so that's fun. So yeah, this station, unlike the second Trinity Station, opened in 1846. Closed in 1917 and reopened in 1919 due to the First World War, and then closed in 1925 after reopening in 1919. The station itself is located about 200 yards south of Granton Harbour, which I will further associate with two things. One being what I think is the least used bus stop in all of Edinburgh, and the second of which being the time that I took our very own Sasha Holland on a boat with some sailor, and he was terrified. But yeah, it's very sunny and very windy, and I'm struggling to concentrate, and it's very cold. So I'm going to move on to our next station, which is slightly further away from the coast, and hopefully a bit more sheltered from the wind, because I'm basically standing right facing the wind. Alright, so next up we have Granton Gasworks Station, which is probably one of the nicest buildings in Edinburgh, let's be honest. The station was designed specifically for workers commuting from the city centre to the gasworks, which have since been destroyed from what I can tell, and was opened between 1902 and 1942. When the station closed in 1942, it basically remained vacant until just last year in 2023, when it got bought by the charity Wasps and turned into the Granton Station Creative Works, which, I mean, it's a nice building to do so. The station itself is actually a Category B listed building, which, I mean, is fair. It is a very cool building. And it actually has a red plaque from the National Transport Trust, which is, I think, the only other station to have one is Scotland Street Station, which I covered in the last episode if you want to see that. Boom, red circle. It's also worth noting that whilst the station was specifically designed for commuters, it was open to the public, despite there not being any public transport. Oh wow. And to wrap up all of the Granton stations, lastly, I've just got to cover East Pilton Station, which is quite an annoying place to end with. Alright, so to end on a mediocre note, our last station of the day is East Pilton, which I know well of the phrase, say the best for last, but due to the way everything's laid out, this was my best option for going last. It's just a shame it's the least interesting station in the entire video. So this station opened in early 1934, and then remained open for a further 28 years until closing in 1962. And in 1938, the station was renamed from East Pilton to East Pilton Halt. Don't ask me why they added the extra 4 letters on the end, but oh well. The station itself is located between Craiglockhart train station, which I'll be covering in a later episode, and Granton Road Station, which you'll probably remember from like, what, 5 minutes ago? But that's basically all I have to say about the station, and it's annoying that I ended the video on such a mediocre note, but can't win them all, I guess.
Today's journey starts off at Balgreen tram stop, which is the site for the old Balgreen train station.
Hi, good day folks, I'm at Balgreen tram stop, which is the site for the old Balgreen train station. So the station itself was one of 3 stations on the Corstorphine Railway. This one was kind of linked onto the actual main route, but only trains towards Corstorphine stopped, as it was just after the split. Nowadays it's the Balgreen tram stop, which I honestly think is the tram stop I use the most because it connects up to the 38. So, but yeah, the station opened in 1934 and then closed in 1968. So that's a good 34 years in service. But anywho, I know I've only been here for like 3 minutes, but that's my tram, so I've got to go. Why did I call it a Next up, we have Pinkhill Station, which is located roughly halfway between Balgreen and Corstorphine stations on the Corstorphine Railway. Opened in 1902, closed to passengers in January 1968, and to freight in February of 1968. And it also closed between 1917 and 1919, and between that, due to the economy during World War II. As did most train stations in Edinburgh. The station itself isn't actually too interesting. I mean, at least nowadays it isn't too interesting. However, unlike a lot of stations, you can actually at least still see the platforms. Very obviously, in fact. They stick out like a sore thumb. But I think that's cool, and it's also nice to sit on them, just because I'm tired. And this is the last station. This is the 3rd station of the video, but I'm filming it last because of the way I'd have to do it all, and also I stay in Merkson, so it'd be hard to get it all done in order, like I do with some videos. But yeah, that's Pinkhill, so now let's head along. Final station on the Corstorphine Railway, Corstorphine. Let's head to that, and then we can get back to the main line. Alright, so next up we have the end of the Corstorphine Railway, Corstorphine Station, which the journey between here and Waverley Station, which was the other end of the route, took only 11 minutes. It's a pretty quick link. I mean, of course, nowadays you can get in there on the bus in like 20 minutes tops, so it's not too impressive, but considering I went via Balgreen, that's pretty good. So yeah, the station itself opened in 1902 and closed in 1968, unlike Pinkhill. And it's now the site of probably one of the quietest residential areas I've ever seen. Like, genuinely, I've been here for like 10 minutes and I haven't seen a single person. If you're wondering why it took me 10 minutes to just start filming, that is including the walk, and also I had to set up my tripod. But yeah, for the end of the station, it's not really that interesting. I mean, Pinkhill was more interesting, and that wasn't the end of the line, so that's slightly unusual, but oh well. So yeah, that's just got through the Corstorphine Railway, so I think it's about time for us to get back onto the main line with Saughton Station, which, like Balgreen, is located at the tram stop.
Next up, we have Saughton Station, which sees hundreds of trams and trains passing through here to this day.
Okay, yeah, again, we got another station that's the site of a tram stop now. This time it's Saughton. So, next stop up. However, this was actually on the main line, unlike Balgreen, which split off right after the main line. So the station itself opened in 1842 as Corstorphine Station, and then in 1902 had its name changed to Saughton, presumably because that was around the time that the Corstorphine Station opened in Corstorphine. And then in 1917, due to the economy from World War I, the station ended up closing until 1919, when it only lasted another 2 years until closing in 1921. The other stations after this one were Turnhouse Station, which I covered in episode 4 of this series, and Gogar Station, which I'll be covering later on in this episode. In fact, I believe that's the next station I'm covering, so. And then in 2004, the site of the station here, the tram stop, was opened as part of the Edinburgh Guided Busway, which remained open for about 5 years before they started working on the trams. And the station opened on the 31st of May 2014 to trams, which it is still very popular among frequent tram users. So I would know I go on the trams past here at least once every month.
Alongside the trams, buses still frequently pass the station, with services 1, 2 and 22 combining to make 10 buses per hour into town.
But yeah, due to the work they've had to do to install the trams, you can't really see many remnants of the old stations, if any at all. So, yeah. On to Gogar.
Next up we have Gogar Station, which is only one 6-minute tram ride and 25-minute walk through the middle of nowhere away.
Oh no! How on earth will I get around this gate? I'm doomed. Alright, so next up I think we have probably the most unpedestrian friendly station to get to nowadays, Gogar Station. The walk here was brutal. I'm just glad I was wearing a high vis, because I swear to God I'd have probably got hit like 3 times if I wasn't. But yes, this isn't even the most far out station in the entire video, yet it feels the most far out. It's definitely going to feel more far out than Ratho and Kirkliston, which are also stations in this video. It's very quiet though, I like it. But yeah, this station's probably the least interesting station of the entire video, which is interesting because despite this, it'll still open for 88 years. 88. The station opened in 1842 and closed in 1930. We're in the middle of goddamn nowhere. But yeah, the actual side of the station is hard to see because the way that the bridge is laid out, because we're on Gogar Station Road and the bridge it's got very high walls, and I'm 6 foot and they're definitely taller than me, so if I brought my tape measure I could measure how tall the bridge is, but my guess is that it's probably about 7'3". But yeah, trains do actually still pass through here very frequently, as we're barely just too far off from Edinburgh Park Station, so you'll primarily see 385s passing through here up to Stirling or Glasgow Main Street. But you can also see 334s on trains out to Helmsburgh Central quite frequently. So I've got like an hour until I need to be at the Gala Centre, and I've got like, it'll take me like 25 minutes to walk there, so might try to get a clip of a 334, because there should be one in the next like 5-10 minutes, so. Those are my second favorite trains behind only the 385, so I'm going to wait and get a clip of the 385 and then we can go. But yeah, I'll get that and then I'll head along to the Gala Centre so I can get to our next station of the day, which is Ratho. Alright, so next up we've got Ratho Station, which is located in the village of Ratho Station, which is named after the train station, which opened in 1842 and closed in 1951. But it also opened in 1866 and closed in 1930. Let me explain. So basically there were 2 levels to the Ratho Station. There was the high level and the low level. High level, you had trains out to places like Broxburn and Widgeborough stations, which are 2 stations in West Lothian that are also closed. Or, from the low level, you had our next station of the day, trains out to Kirkliston. So, the high level was open 1842 to 1951, whereas the low level was open 1866 to 1930. Otherwise, nowadays, it's not really too interesting. It's located next to this cool pedestrian arch bridge, which is also quite good for both train spotting and plane spotting. So, I got a clip of, both a clip of a 334 and and also a Ryan airplane taking off, which our very own Bradley Inch will be able to provide the info about.
The aircraft seen right there is a Ryanair Boeing 737-8 departing from EDI to TFS, which is Edinburgh to Tenerife. I don't like 737s because the doors just tend to fly off sometimes.
But yeah, this station is actually just the next station over from Gogar Station. However, it does, despite being further out of the city, it does feel less rural, as you're next to Ratho Station, the village, and also it's just, there's a lot of buildings surrounding it if you face towards the airport. If you look this way, it's literally just trees. But okay, and so for our last station of the day, we have the site for old Kirkliston Station, which it's part of an estate now. So the station was opened on the 1st of March in 1866 for both passengers and goods. However, in 1930, it was closed to passengers, and then about 25 years later, it was closed to goods as well. However, it was barely just short of 100, but when it was withdrawn, so oh well. From here, trains either head southbound back towards Ratho Station, or northbound to either the old Dalmeny Station, which I won't be covering since the new Dalmeny Station still exists, or to South Queensferry Station, which I covered in episode 4 of this series if you want to see. Otherwise, there really isn't much to this station, as it's literally just in an estate now, and the only other cool thing you can do here is, unless you have friends staying over, is see Ryan airplanes flying ahead. But even then, you can do that at Ratho and also get trains, so. Our final journey starts off just off of one of the main roads out of Edinburgh at Craigleith Retail Park. Alright, good day folks, it's me, Mortimer here, a final episode of The Abandoned, coming to you on a Thursday instead of Friday, as I've got a couple announcements coming out tomorrow's video, but yeah, so we're starting the day off at Craigleith Station, which is located on both the Leith branch and Barnton branch, being the terminus of the Barnton branch, and being situated between East Pilton Station and Murrayfield Station, on the Leith branch. So yeah, the station opened on the Leith branch in 1879 and remained open until the 30th of April in 1962, when it was closed to passengers. And then for the Barnton branch, where it was the terminus, it opened in 1894 and then closed in 1951, meaning that it lasted in service for 57 years with the Barnton branch and 83 years on the Leith branch. To the south, there's Murrayfield Station, which is our next station of the day, and to the north, there were no stations until East Pilton, which is one of the stations covered in episode 6 of this series, which, if you want to see more on that, I would highly advise checking out that episode. Nowadays, the station itself is part of a very popular cycle path, the Roseburn Path, which spans from Ferry Road all the way down to Dalry, and for the platforms themselves, you can actually still see them pretty prominently on both sides, so yeah. Alright, on to Murrayfield. Alright, so next up we have Murrayfield Station, which opened in 1879 and closed in 1962, like pretty much all the other stations on the Leith branch, and is located just next to the bridge over what is now West Coates or Murrayfield Road, if you want to be specific.
The area still sees links into the city centre, with various bus routes providing frequent links that take no more than about 10 minutes.
So nowadays, as for the station itself, you can still quite clearly see the platforms, but otherwise, like Craigleith, it is literally just a busy cycle path. However, it's not as busy as Craigleith, because everyone tends to come off by now, as once you're past this bridge, you're basically in Son's Garden. But anyways, the rugby's on in about 3 hours, and I intended to be at Ingleston Park and Ride in about 15 minutes, which I'm definitely not going to achieve. So I'm going to call it quits for just now, as I'm filming this quite a bit ahead of time. So I'm going to cut back to this next week, when I'll have the next station, Gilmerton, which is on the complete other side of the city. However, it's easier to get to than here. Well, I guess I just need to do a 15-minute ride on the 38 and then a 10-minute. Yeah, no, it's probably harder, actually, never mind. Alright, so next up, we have Gilmerton Station, which is actually the last station I'm going to be filming in the series. The station that is actually going to be last in this video, I filmed beforehand, but I was directly on a bus route I could take from there to here, so that's what I've done. So the station itself opened in 1874, and then closed like most stations in Edinburgh between 1917 and 1919 due to the economy during the First World War. Reopened in 1919, 1935 the station closed to passengers, and then in 1959 the station closed to good. Nowadays it is part of a cycleway that spans from sort of Musselburgh way out to Lone Head, which is pretty cool. If any of you have watched our second channel, Central Scotland Buses Deluxe, you'll have seen plenty of our races, one of which I was racing Charlie Gunn from Lone Head to Musselburgh. I was on the East Coast Buses 140. He was on this cycle path here, cycling down on his bike. And here it's starting to get dark, so I think I ought to get heading home. So this is the last station I'm going to be filming for the series. However, I'm doing this after I've filmed all of the next ones. So, yeah. Next up, we have Portobello. So, see you there. Okay, so next up we have Portobello Station, which opened on the Edinburgh and Dalkeith Railway in 1832. Then 14 years later, in 1846, it was closed and replaced by a Portobello Station on the North British Railway main line through Edinburgh, which was open until 1964, with a short period in between in 1890 where I was being rebuilt. I genuinely spent ages trying to actually find the site of the station. Like, I've been wandering up and down Stanley Street for the past like 15-20 minutes. So I found out that the only way I could get to it is either by going through someone's house into their garden, or crawling into a field which looks to be filled with a bunch of Japanese knotweed. So I've compromised. I'm sort of halfway up Stanley Street. I'm kind of next to this unnamed golf course, from what I can tell. So nowadays, yeah, there's basically nothing to see. Of course, the trains still pass through here. It's still the main line through Edinburgh to the east, to the Lothians and to England. So you do still hear trains trundling through quite frequently. Whilst I've been here, I've heard an LNER 800, ScotRail 385, and a ScotRail 170, so that's pretty good.
It's also worth noting that if you want to go vegging, you're right next to the Craiglockhart rail depot, where you can either get trains parked up for maintenance, or you can see trains passing through from the bridge that goes above it, such as the one on screen, which is a cross-country Class 220.
But, yeah, I've been here long enough. Honestly, I have no business to ever go down Stanley Street, so I think being here for longer than 20 minutes is a bit strange. But next station's Joppa, which is like a 15-20 minute walk down the road, so I'm going to hop to that now. Alright, so next up we have Joppa Railway Station, which opened in 1847 on the Edinburgh and Dalkeith Railway, and then was replaced by the North British Railway mainline station, Joppa Station, in 1859. And that station was then open until 1964. Honestly, it's barely a mile away from Portobello Station, so there isn't really much to say about it, about Joppa, that I haven't already said about Portobello. So, yeah. That was an embarrassingly short segment, considering that I've been here shorter than I was trying to debate whether I wanted to cross this bridge over the A199 or add 20 minutes to get to here from Portobello.
Yeah, sure, the joke about me being scared of crossing bridges might be exaggerated, but it's not exaggerated by an awful lot. I am actually kind of scared of having to cross pedestrian bridges.
Alright, so next up, as per usual for this series, I've made a bit of a mistake in the process of filming this. I think I intended to do this station in episode 5, and then Jock's Lodge in this episode. Some of y'all might recognize this from episode 5, when I was reviewing a Jock's Lodge station back in the days where I had long hair instead. As it turns out, Jock's Lodge Station is actually roughly 150 yards further out of the city than Pinkhill Station. So I meant to cover Pinkhill, however I was looking at the coordinates for Jock's Lodge and put that in for episode 5 in the central area instead. And then, when I was looking this morning at the site for all the stations for planning my trip, I just had a wee look at where Piers Hill Station was, expecting it to be relatively near the cemetery. Nope, it's a bit down that way. Jock's Lodge was a bit down that way. But yeah, Piers Hill Station opened in 1868 as part of the Edinburgh Suburban Line, which is something I didn't expect, as in episode 1 when I made my video on the Edinburgh Suburban Line, I was mainly classing the Edinburgh Suburban Line as the southern part, which is the bit that I think Edinburgh Suburban Line, and not, you know, East Coast Main Line. But yeah, the station then closed for 2 years between 1917 and 1990 due to the First World War, and remained open until it was inevitably closed in 1964, 2 years after most of the stations on the actual Edinburgh Suburban Line were closed. But yeah, that's us finally done in East Edinburgh. Next up, I've got to take a bus for like half an hour out to Shandon for our next station of the day, which should be Murchison. Well, last of all, out of all the stations, last one's Murchison. So Murchison Station opened in 1882 and then closed in 1965 and was situated between the old Princes Street Station, which I covered in episode 5 of this series, and Slateford Station, which is one of few stations in Edinburgh still open to this day, since I think there's only like, what, 9, maybe 10. But yeah, nowadays it's just a tiny wee footpath and also a small road for vehicle access into the Slateford rail depot, where trains are stored. So yeah, maybe not the most interesting note to end on, but it's a good place for a walkout shot. But yeah, this has honestly given me like a really insightful view into what transport was like in Edinburgh, like 60, 70, hell, even like 100, 150 years ago. So it has honestly been super interesting. Bit annoyed that it's having to come to an end, but I'm glad I was able to do some, because it's given me an excuse to visit a lot of places in the city I wouldn't otherwise get to go around and visit. So honestly, I think actually filming all the stations has been a bit irritating, but getting to learn everything about these stations, it has honestly been super exciting. So yeah, honestly, this has been genuinely one of the most interesting projects I think I've ever worked on for YouTube, and I've been on the platform for, I think it'll be 10 years next year. Admittedly, we don't talk about my old channel, but yeah, I'm gonna get heading. So if I've got some exciting announcements, if you've enjoyed this series, I've got some exciting announcements coming tomorrow. But yeah, we've got to the end of the series, sun's setting. This is basically gonna make perfect outro clip, so just one thing that I need now. Oh yeah. Until next time, folks, take care of yourselves.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway.